And learn and play one more turn of the great strategy games, and today I hover above a start menu screen that has my heart aflutter. It is War in the East 2. This is like Christmas Day at the dojo. It reminds me of when your young sensei in Christmas of 82 or 83 looked at a box under the tree, ripped the paper open, and saw an Atari 2600. It is that momentous in my gaming life. Now, I come to you here with a copy of War in the East 2, and I would like to give a special thank you to Slitherine and Matrix. Paulo over there, great guy. Thank you, Paulo. I should also add that the promise of a firstborn child probably not legally enforceable in the United States, and you don't have it on paper. So here we are. We've got it. They're allowing me to play it or look at it or admire it. And hopefully you are all excited as well. I apologize for those following my War in the East Let's Play. I think understandably we're going to jump into this one today. Now, I will finish that. I promise you. I promise you. Those panzers are rolling, folks. We can't stop that. So we will get back to that at some point. But this is it. This is the big one. The sequel to what is arguably the greatest war game ever made. I just got this morning. I flipped around a little bit. I've booted up a scenario or two, and just to look at the map and caress my screen. No, it didn't get that weird. But anyway, let's go take a peek. Rock a soccer. I knew you'd be a happy man today, my friend. I do have the sound of the game up just slightly because I kind of like it, but let me turn that down. You don't want to miss any of these quotable quotes I'm throwing out there. Well, at least you just don't want to be annoyed. Let's put it that way. The start screen right here, it looks very familiar. And why is that? It looks almost identical to the start screen in War in the West or the original War in the East, which is a good thing. It's very simple to kind of flip through here. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any individual part of the game right now. I just wanted to show it to you. We'll kind of go around the map. We'll talk about certain things, how the user interface is set up, what's different and whatnot. We're not going to sit and discuss every single concept here. I will be doing that, as you may have guessed, but just not at this very moment. Axis human, Soviet computer. Pretty simple stuff, right? Difficulty, they still have the 5 difficulty levels. Normal, challenging, hard, impossible. Let's play it on impossible. Easy, and back to normal we go. Now that will affect things in the game option screen. Game options, computer control, that would be the Soviets here. Fog of War. Oh, I would like to point out as well, I am playing the 1.00.00. So before Thursday, the game could change. I would not expect any major change, of course, unless their programmers are going 24/7, which they probably are, but I don't even think they could get a major change into the game at this point. But there might be a slight variation, so just keep that in mind. This is the beta initial. This just hatched from the egg, and so there will be updates. I'm sure that if there's a bug or two found, they'll get out patches very quickly. They're usually very good at doing that. Fog of War. Hey, I always play with Fog of War on, but for these purposes, right, let's turn that off so we can check out what's going on. We'll talk about movement Fog of War in the tutorial. Lock headquarters support, again, as they call it in the biz, an advanced concept, and we're not going to hit the advanced concepts today. But if you've been watching War in the East, you get the idea of what lock headquarters support is. Automate AI air assist. And now we get to the first difference, the first real telltale sign we are in War in the East 2. And so, again, It's advanced, but I will tell you this, the air war is very, very simple, not identical, but very similar to War in the West, if you played War in the West. And what is that? Well, in War in the East 1, okay, the one we've been playing, you move air bases around, which never seemed quite realistic that you would move an air base and, you know, it's a counter on the map and you have it trail your army and you put squadrons or gruppas in it and fly missions from there. It all seemed strangely particular for an abstract concept. And so what they've done is gone to the War in the West system or something very close to it, where you actually have stationary air bases now, okay? And you also do not have air counters really on the map. You've got air bases, and those air bases contain your gruppas or your squadrons of planes. And then you fly missions from there. Now, there's a lot more to it, of course. You know, I couldn't explain this if we took the whole episode to do that, because it will take me a couple of episodes in the tutorial. Hello, Atlas. Hello, P. Warner. Old Gray Gamer. Haven't seen you about, my friend. Welcome. If it's your first time, if you've been lurking, comment. You know, it never stopped P. Warner here. Yeah, you just let it fly. Whatever hits your head. Yeah. Welcome to everyone that is here. Again, if it's your first time, we have a freewheeling conversation here, and I take little to no offense, and usually I'm being sarcastic. Not always. If I'm talking to Stanley, I kid, Stanley. I kid. So I was being sarcastic. But anyway, welcome to the crew here. We have a good one. A lot of people with a lot of historical knowledge and also just knowledge about these games. You can learn a lot here. Hell, I learn a lot here in the chat. Okay, back to it. So ultimate automate AI air assist. I would say just what I know from War in the West and what I've tooled around with here so far, have this on the first several times you start to play the game. You are not ready. I'm not ready to go out and set individual air directives all by myself without the AI assist, and so that should be checked, and I think that will help all of us here. But I will be showing you both ways in the tutorial, the AI way of running the air war, which is kind of a hybrid. You set priorities, and the manual way of doing it, where you really set every single directive. And so, you know, they're kind of two different systems in the game. This is the easier one to start off with for sure. Enhanced player TV control. Okay, that's a mouthful. And what does it mean? Well, this game, much like War in the West, sets up theater boxes. And what is that supposed to recreate? Well, it recreates the fact that you may not believe it, but there's a war going on all over the world. And so there are theaters happening that could potentially drain your manpower, your supply. There are theaters that could actually enhance it. If that theater were to be going well, they can shift units around. It's meant to simulate the fact that the Soviets and the Axis both move divisions from front to front. Obviously, very famously, the Soviets moved almost their entire eastern force to the gates of Moscow as the Germans approached, turning the tide of the war. And so this is meant to replicate that. Enhanced player TV control, I'll be honest with you, I haven't gotten down into the details of that, but the idea is this would give you more control over those theater boxes. So you won't see the whole war recreated, otherwise we'd be playing strategic command, right? You know, see the whole world. This has theater boxes. It has, you know, different units that you could possibly transfer back and forth. We'll go into that in a tutorial. General difficulty level, now we set this to normal, just like War in the East and War in the West. You know, as you change these, it makes things more challenging by by giving you penalties or bonuses based on the base level of what they normally would be. So if you're on normal, everything's at 100%, meaning it's the base level. You can give certain bonuses or certain penalties depending on your AI level. Hey, you can reset it to default if you want to. Preferences, exactly the same, really. I've got it in window screen mode. It's easier to stream that way. We may change that if we have a problem with a stream and go to full screen, or, I've got a little dead area right up at the top when I play in Windows mode. So, we may go full screen with this one. I will tell you, generally Matrix games, when you full screen, you guys don't want to hear all about that. Okay, back we go. These are all personal preference, right? Whatever flavor you like. Hey, let's show the jump map. We want to see the jump map. I will tell you, just if you're new to the Grigsby games in general, do not check that. You want your NATO symbols if you're used to war games. Unit values display type. You could do this. You can have their name on their counter. I actually just always keep these as numerals down there, because what do we want to see? This is the important one. CV and move. CV is combat value. It gives you a very general idea of the strength of the unit. Now, this is attack value. So this is you have two different combat values, attack, defense, and there's a whole witch's brew that they throw in the pot to come up with that number. These things are not exact or perfect. They're meant to give you a general idea. Things like terrain, road, weather, all of those things can affect your combat value, and it comes out on the other side as adjusted combat value after they sprinkle, some garlic on there and whatnot. But CV gives you that general idea. Move tells you how many movement points that you have left with that counter, with that unit. Infantry units, all other things being equal, with full supply, no fatigue, all of those things, will have 16 movement points at the start of a turn. Motorized units will have 50. So motorized units can generally move about 3 times as far as infantry units, boots on the ground. But as the game goes on and you don't have as good a supply, maybe your general fails a check, maybe you're in rougher terrain, of course, maybe you're crossing a river, you'll have less movement points than the base level. But that's 16 and 50, 16 for infantry, 50 for motorized. Show river and rail, of course we want to see that. Okay. Pick a scenario. Okay, I'm not going to do anything else. You want to see the game. I want to see the game. Let's just go to the 1941 campaign. Now, they say, start with Veleky Luki. I just like to say Veleky Luki, so I wanted to point that out. We're going to be going straight to the grand campaign. Maybe in the tutorial we'll play one of the smaller ones, but let's get to it. As you can see, I've loaded this up 4 times this morning. Don't tell me I'm not excited. And there we have it. All right, let's zoom all the way out. Now, the first thing I would like to point out about War in the East 2 that is completely different than War in the East 1, but is very much similar to War in the West, is there are actually, I go back and forth whether to say there are 2 phases or 4 phases. I'm going to say there are 4 phases, okay? Now, you have the 2 big groupings, the air phase and the ground phase. But if you break that down, what happens? Phase 1 of every turn, now of course this isn't applicable to turn 1, is the logistics phase. And so things move around. I say things, supply, bullets, food, uniforms, supply, fuel, and so logistics happens first, okay? And then the first thing you can control or do anything about is called the air planning phase, and that is phase number 2, okay? Then once we have the planning done, phase 3 is the air resolution phase, and so the computer will take over when you hit F12 over here. It's like hitting next turn, but it's not really next turn, it's next phase, okay? And as the axis, we go first, and so logistics don't happen turn 1. We start immediately in phase 2, air planning for the axis, all right? And that's how every turn will start. Logistics will be taken care of by the AI. Then you go to air planning. This will always be what you see when you resolve a turn, the air planning screen. Okay, when the air planning screen is up, now you start to see some of the differences with the map. You see the towns back here. This is production stuff. We'll get into that. Oh, I would like to point out one new thing here is there are events, and you see up here in the left corner, new events. New events. Looks like a newspaper up there. So we'll click. Turn 1, situation report. Well, I'm not going to read this whole thing. You get the idea. It's the 22nd of June, 1941. That means the invasion of the Soviet Union. You can read through here. But my understanding is there will be pop-up events that are very historical. So let's say we get to June of 1944. I'm sure that you'll get a little newspaper up here that says the Allies have landed in Normandy. David J. Roussan, hello, Automatic, hey. How's it going? How are you? Thanks for dropping by, guys. That's a very exciting episode for Strategy Gaming Dojo. So, situation report, you're going to get these little news event pop-ups up here. So that's fun. That's a new addition. Now then, what do we have over here? This is new as well. It's called the turn summary, and it will tell you, how many men that you've lost, how many guns you've lost, tanks, and airplanes this turn. So it gives you just kind of a turn summary of what's going on during the turn. Imagine that, called the turn summary. You see your logistics here. It tells you various things, units, depots. Those are new in War in the East 2. Repair, tons received. It also gives you these combat unit alerts, which I like. I like this idea. It tells you your units. If one's under strength, it will tell you here. You can get strength alerts, supply alerts. So if you have something that's not in supply or not in good enough supply, you will get alerts down here. And I think that's a nice addition to the game. Now, we've always been able to do that somewhat through the map info. Which one is it up here? Yeah, I won't go look for it, but it'll highlight those units that are maybe out of supply or too far away from their headquarters, etc. But this just gives you kind of a handy way to look at that. Now, this next part down here is completely new. And that is, it's kind of a running score if you're running a campaign. Okay, running score if you're playing a campaign. So you can kind of see on a graph here how it's going. Obviously in War in the East 1, the Axis starts off just swamping the Soviets, and with such an advantage that you see all these victory points building up, and you're like, okay, well, hey, I'm doing great. Well, you might not be doing great. It's just because you should be doing really well, and you're not maybe doing as well as you should be, even though it looks good. And so this is just kind of a running score down here to kind of tell you how you're doing. Now this is set turn 16. I'll have to read a little bit more about this whole mechanic and how it works. Sudden loss, how many points you have now. Sudden victory, let's do that one. I like that. That's in green, so that makes sense, right? And so, I'll dig more into that when we actually do the tutorial. But let's get off of turn summary. Now there are hotkeys for everything. As we just look up here and around the map, I like the user interface. It's very clean, it's very nice. You can see what you need to see, and as you get used to these, of course, you'll just be flipping up here and you won't even have to think about it. But it also shows you up here in a triangle the hotkey that corresponds with each one of these buttons, and so you can very easily just flip to that screen, figure out what you need to do. Once you get used to that. Do I use hotkeys? Maybe I'm a little old school. I don't use hotkeys as much as probably some people do, but it's nice just to see it here on the screen. You can hit your keyboard. I like that. That's good for an old timer like me. One very important hotkey, though, is the hotkey key. Did he repeat himself? I don't know. Yes, the hotkey key. Hey, CJ, Bilderberger, Sean Cope. Excellent, excellent. Good group here today. Wow. Hotkeys. You can always pull that up from that administration admin screen. So this is just like, so I'm going to go backwards here a little bit with the tabs. The admin is just like it was in War in the East 1. Save, hotkey, game options. You know, this is, what is it? It's admin stuff. It doesn't affect gameplay, of course. It's just, you know, there to help you save your game, whatever the case. Very simple, you know, just a few buttons there. Info screens. Info screens are actually very similar to they were to War in the East 1. Order of battle, losses, production, metrics. Now this is new, so you'll have graphs now that show you, and of course you can see over here, you can go to different theaters, you can you know, filter this how you will and get a graph if you are a visual person. So that's nice, that's very helpful. This is weather, and of course the weather now is going to be a lot more variable in this game. There are weather areas, and the weather, you know, in War in the East 1, there are 3 main areas, and it's kind of always clear until the 18th turn, and then it gets muddy, and then by turn 20 or 21, it's snowing. You know, just put that in the bank with War in the East 1. My understanding is the weather system here has really been worked on. It's going to be a lot more variable. You're going to find a lot more, you know, rains sometime on turn 6. And that didn't really happen in War in the East 1, so they're trying to make it a lot more realistic in that respect. Okay. Reinforcement withdrawal schedule. This is nice. It tells you what's coming in very easily. This is a lot better than in War in the East 1. You can see exactly what you're getting and when you're getting it. You can filter it for all sorts of things down here. And so that's a nice little screen there. Commander's report. Now, again, I know that they've done a lot of work on this. It looks fairly similar to what you see in War in the East 1. I know that they have tried to add every bit of information that you need. Now, the commander's report in War in the East 1 had a heck of a lot of information, but this, you know, has been refined, but in a similar type format. So if you've played that game, this should look fairly familiar to you. So that's the commander's report. Okay. Logistics phase. So this is that same logistics event log that you get in War in the East 1. Again, all of these things I'll be diving much deeper into in the tutorial and the Let's Play. I'm going to be doing both. So error doctrine screen. Now, I'm not going to go that deep into error doctrine for this introductory, hey, here's the game idea. So, you know, we could go down a rabbit hole here that would take all day, and we will, but I'm not going to do that here. This is new, though, and you will be setting up or assisting the AI by giving it your priorities and error doctrines, all right? Error doctrines are things like bomb rail yard. You know, I want a priority on rail yards, okay? You would give that the highest priority level, and we'll go into that and how that works. And then the AI will set up individual air missions to go out and accomplish that objective, okay? That's kind of like big picture how the air system works. Obviously, we'll get way more into that. Air directive summary. This will be showing you what each of your air, they're called AOGs, air operational groups, what they will be running, what kind of missions they'll be running. Again, you know, advanced topic, we'll get there. What do we have here? We've got the theater box screen. Now see, you could go over here to Western Europe and look at all of the different units as the axis that we have in Western Europe. There are other ones. You can go down. How exactly do I get to that, though? That's one thing that maybe I didn't look at. Or are they split off here? Oh, they are. Okay, so you can go down here and look at each theater. So we've got, what do we have at the top? Well, obviously we have a lot in Western Europe. Then you can go down and see, okay, what do we have in Italy? Can he get there? Can he get there? Can he get there? This thing's jumping around on me. North Africa, you get the idea. Norway, the Balkans, Finland. So these are all theater boxes. Now, I think that means we will not be able to attack with the Finns, which is always one of my favorite things in a War in the East 1 game, but honestly, that's fine. Gosh, can he ever get to Finland? How about we go to the jump map? There we go. Yeah, and if we go to the jump map and we zoom in, doesn't appear we'll be able to control the to control the Finns. That's okay. That was always kind of a waste of time. You just come down here to the line and you wait for the Germans to do something. I mean, seriously, that's all that ever was, and it's fine with me. I'm glad they made that a theater box. Now, you can also see these. So if you look down here at the jump map, you see right above the jump map, you can go to these theater boxes, right? So if you want to go to Western Europe, you can go to Western Europe. You can see what you've got on the ground there. And I believe this is what's required. If this is, or required to maintain the same historical path, would be 100%. So we'll get deeper into that, and I'll be honest with you, I want to read more about this to get exactly how it works, but that's my understanding, and if it's like War in the West, that's how it would work. On the ground, now you can see counters here, right? So these are all of the units that are in Western Europe. You know, we could bring some over to the east as reinforcements if we check that box. Remember on the options, it said, you know, you have greater control. My understanding is if you click that box, my understanding is that we would be able to move some of these. Now, again, I'm going to have to know more about that before I want to tell you about it. I don't want to give you information that's incorrect. So let's just say now that's my understanding, and we will find out more. There are also air units. Okay, so that was Western Europe. You can go look at the same for Norway. The ground units there, the air units there, Finland, you get the idea. And then we have reserves here. So these are our actual reserves. And again, moving these onto the map or having them be part of the war on the Eastern Front is just something I'm going to have to look a lot deeper into before I feel comfortable telling you, hey, this is exactly, hey, let's take this AA unit and throw it down somewhere. We will get to that. Now, if you ever get to this screen, I can tell you. Now, how would I know this? Well, I probably know this because I spent about 2 or 3 minutes trying to figure it out. You can't necessarily escape out of these boxes. You have to come back down here and click that. Again, don't ask me how I know that. Maybe it took a couple of minutes for me to figure that out. You can laugh at me if you wish. Salty Dodger, hello. We've got PETA 0976. Yeah, CASCA 666 Longinus. It is long. Excellent to see you, my friend. Excellent to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. And if you're new to the channel, hey, we do this every day. And it's usually a Grigsby game. So how about that? All right, let's get back over here and go through some more things. So you've got the theater boxes. Here's how you go see them visually down on top of the jump map. You've got a victory screen, of course. This very much like War in the East 1. The Wikipedia. So this does have a reference. I would imagine this is going to be fleshed out as time goes on, patches come out or new updates come out. But now, you know, if you want to know some, I don't know, you want to know something about the 328th Infantry Division, it tells you, you know, a lot of information. It gives you the historical kind of path during the War in the East for this unit. Wow, cool. Okay, it even gives you the references. That's really cool. Huh. It's a lot more information than I expected them to have, to be honest with you. So, yep, Wikipedia. Fine, cool. Show events. Again, that's our little events over here. Once you click on the newspaper and exit out, that goes away. But you could always come back up here, find that. Turn summary. That's that turn summary screen that you start every turn with over here. Now these are all air, well that one's not, that's show battles. These are all air directives. Again, just not something I'm going to get into on this first video, but these are the basic air directives that you can give. They're pretty self-explanatory, right? Ground support, ground attack, strategic bombing. Let's just click on one so you can see it. It brings up your Luftlots, all right? You can click on the Luftlots and you can start to see their air doctrines and what the AI is saying should be our missions based on our doctrines. All right. Whoops, I just set one. Look out for that. No, I didn't. When I right-clicked, it gets rid of that. Okay, I'm going to finish up here first, and then we'll get into other stuff. Air doctrine screen, you know, again, we already pulled that up. You will understand that by the time we're through. Hell, I'll understand it by the time we're through. No, it's not that complicated. Once you get the basic concepts and kind of get your arms around it, it's different. It's different, but we'll get it all figured out. This is AI depot management. All right, that's a new concept for this game. In this game, supply is handled quite a bit differently than it is in War in the East 1. That's probably a good thing. It's more realistic. You have depots now, and those depots, instead of moving kind of like supply dumps in your headquarters, which was never quite realistic, everything operates off of a railroad depot system. Now you can fly transport missions out and dump fuel just like we have been doing in War in the East 1, but this depot system is something we'll go deep into. This is using automated AI air system. Now this is not lit up, it's grayed out. That means we did pick this, and so the computer knows that it's on. That may, kind of transfix in your mind. You would think it'd be lit up, but instead they've decided to gray it out when that's been picked in the options. Okay, factory navigation. Factories are handled differently. Now, as an Axis player, you never really had to worry about factories at all. As a Soviet player, they had more hands-on with the factories. They could also get them out and have them flee and scurry when you got close to a town, and that was done manually. Now, the AI will take over most of that for the Soviet player. Probably a good thing. I think it keeps it more historic. I guess the towns will actually, start to box up and get the equipment out of there when they did historically. And so there is that. Now up here, you have the same stuff that we're used to. AP points. Now I will tell you that one of the things we mainly use AP for in War in the East 1 is to switch commands. So we'll have a division that we want to be in another corps or another army. Those no longer cost. That does not cost. They will allow you to switch command. Now I will say, when you switch command for that turn anyway, the division gets a penalty. And so I think it's a little more realistic that, I guess, if OKH wanted to call down here and say, hey, we want all of 9th Army under the command of, 16th Army's headquarters, they could do that if they wanted to. And I guess you shouldn't really be limited by this kind of abstracted construct of points to do that. But you're going to suffer a penalty. And now there are also command points, right? So if you get something oversubscribed, just like there was in War in the East 1, if you have a command unit that has too many units underneath it, there will be penalties applied. You've got the date. This game, just like War in the East 1, is week by week. It's a weekly turn system. It is 10 miles per hex. So from this corner of the hex, or from this side of the hex to this side of the hex, is 10 miles. So it's the same scale. This just tells you the turn number, right? Up here, we've got the soft factors. And if you're not familiar with the game, I can scoot in here a little bit. And right now, we do not have a soft factor set. It says none. And if you look at our counters, there is nothing up here in the left-hand corner. But let's go set it to something. Now, you could set it to morale, experience, supply, fuel, ammo, units attacked, supply priority. Now that's a new thing in this game that becomes very important, and we'll get into that. Combat prep, another new concept. Okay, but let's just put it on supplies. And now you see a green up here in the corner. What does that mean? That it's better than 80% supplied. If it goes yellow, it's fallen below that. If it goes below 40%, it goes red. And this, is just a very quick, handy way to tell which of your units are in supply or not in, or in good supply or not in good supply. Okay, and so that's all these soft factors are. They put a little tab over the corner of your counter just to let you know whatever it is you want to look like. What do you want to look like? Well, I want to be beautiful. Whatever you want to look at. So, once we get going, and it's very important that we have fuel out to the panzers, you can pick fuel, and it'll show you the fuel situation on each of your counters. That is an identical concept to all the other Grigsby games, but we do have a few new soft counters here, or soft factors, I should say, that go along with some of the new concepts of the game. All right, map. Let's go look at the map a little bit. This stuff up here is very, very much the same as in the previous game. You can take the units off, you can put them on, you can zoom out. You can also do that with the middle mouse wheel. Toggle enemy hexes. Now see, you can have a prettier map here if you want. You can also see some new terrain types here. Heavy woods, you see more trees in the hex. This would be light woods. You can still see the swamps here. I'm sure map mods are on the way, but I think the map already looks pretty good. But what this does is it just shows you what hexes are controlled. When I say controlled, I don't mean that they have a counter in the hex necessarily. It just means they're the last ones to establish any control in that hex. It costs more to move through it, and so it hurts your logistics as well. Hey, David Craggs, how are you? Hey, oh, great. Yeah, these are, I mean, I love these games. I love Grigsby games. We'll be playing, the best strategy games, whatever they are. It just so happened I started with War in the Pacific, moved on to War in the East because they're my two favorite games. And so you got to talk about what you know and what you love, right? And now we've got this, but we'll be playing all kinds of great strategy games eventually. But we got to start with the best ones, in my opinion. CJ says, Dojo, I read the map size was increased. Does that mean there are more units on the field covering the front for both sides? No, I don't believe there are. Just looking at them, that's a quick cursory glance of the map. The map looks identical pretty much from a unit perspective. Looks like we got a new color down here. Interesting. Okay. Now, while we're in the air planning phase, it's a little harder to get down into these units, so I'm just not going to do it quite yet. But yeah, you've got the Romanians down here. The game is identical when it comes to how... Back up. The game is very much like War in the East 1 when it comes to support units. Okay, so generally this is a division level game. Now you can see regiments out here. You can just tell if we zoom in on them. They've got the three little, counters here. That's just because a division has been broken into 3 regiments. Generally speaking, 98 to 99% of the time, this is a divisional game. 2 X's, that's a division. 3 X's, that's a corps. Those are represented as headquarters that generally have 2 to 4 divisions underneath them. All right, so this is a divisional level game. And I talked about this last night when I did the War in the West tutorial, the start. I think sometimes it's hard for people to get their arms around this concept, and I understand why. I mean, I I've been playing the game for a long time, so to me it's kind of seems second nature. But if you've never played the game before, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around the fact that there are units in this game that are not represented on the map. And they are smaller, they are units that are smaller than divisions. Now, they can sometimes be represented on the map, but as a general rule, they are not. And as a general rule, they are either at the Corps headquarters or the Army headquarters. They're called support units. They can be battalions, they could be companies, they could be brigades. It's units smaller than divisions that are not represented on the map. And you may say, well, why not represent them on the map? Well, you literally would not be able to see anything on the map if every one of those was represented here. So they did it at the division level, like this division right here. And what you do is you attach those battalions, companies, regiments down to the division level out of your Corps headquarters, Army headquarters, or Army group headquarters. Anything up the chain of command can hold those support units. You don't see them on the map, but if you go to the counter and you look at the information on the counter, you'll see them all listed. We'll go into that. We spent a lot of time on that in War in the East 1 because I do think it is one of the most important concepts in the game. It adds a lot of flexibility to what you can do, but until you get it, you don't get it. Does that make sense? It's one of those things that once the light turns on, you're like, oh, that's how this works. But you got to see it. You really got to see it in action, I think, and so that's why we'll do a let's play. Okay, where was I? Hell, I don't know. I went down a rabbit hole there. Toggle fort levels. This game, just like War in the East 1, has fort levels. These can be natural, just based on the hex starting out, but every counter, every unit that does not move in a turn, or even if it's just there at the end of the turn, by the next turn, will have created some natural fortifications. I say natural, let's not put it that way. Will have created some fortifications. That just represents the fact that this game has 1 week turns, right? I said this last night in War in the West tutorial is, yeah, these guys might be playing cards and, kicking the football around or doing whatever, but if they're here for a week in this hex, they're going to be building ditches, trenches, setting up, false AT guns, real AT guns. They're going to start building fortifications. And so there's a fort level that builds up for every turn that a hex is in a unit. Now, a hex is in a unit. A unit is in a hex. It starts at the base level for that hex, and then as the unit is there at the end of the turn, by the next turn, when the logistics phase goes through, it will have built some fortifications and build up. And you can very quickly see it kind of goes on a scale of 1 to 4. Well, I guess it goes 0 to 4, but generally 1 to 4. It's very hard to get up to a 4. 3 is probably 2s and 3s are more usual. Right here at the start, every time I attack, generally, I see that they fix these a little bit. It used to be in War in the East 1, and it still is, I guess we just played it. There were some of these that were level 1 along here, and that's where you attacked. Because, fort levels, think of them as giving a buff to the defender, a penalty to the attacker. You have to sort of tear those down before you even actually get into the combat or battle. And so fort levels, you can see these, they are important. Good to have that there. Toggle rail damage. Now this is, again, exactly like War in the East 1. You can see the rail that is repaired. You can see the rail that is next to a Soviet unit, so you cannot push things through a railway that is next to a Soviet unit. As we get going on here, you'll see red ones where they've been broken. It's very much like the mechanic in the first game. But again, I'm going to go into all of this in the tutorials. Let's turn that off. Toggle combat delays. Okay, so this will just delay when it pops up your combat report is my understanding. I'll go make sure on that. Show command efficiency and command quality. Now this is something that is new that has been introduced here. I like it. It shows you command efficiency. These guys are all green, so I think that's all good. What that kind of means is how far away or how far out of your command are. That's my understanding. Or if the core headquarters is oversubscribed, they may turn yellow. Let's say if it's commanding 10 points out of the 8, it should be commanding, or is its natural level, that would turn a different color. Show command quality. I'll have to look into this. I don't know exactly what they mean by that. It's just something I'm going to have to look at. And I'll always tell you that if I don't know what I'm talking about. Everybody that's been around the channel for a while will tell you that happens so seldom. But if it does happen, I will tell you. And I just don't know what that means, so I don't want to give you wrong information. Toggle unit modes isolated on and off. This is what we talked about before. Now, we're not going to see anything here, but this is where the units themselves will light up if they're far away from supply, if they're isolated, which is a very powerful part of this game, is trying to isolate Soviet units so that they have no way out and generally will surrender. Although we saw a little bit differently in the mountains in the Ukraine, didn't we, in the Let's Play. Toggle shows supply priority on and off. Okay, first of all, let's get off that. We'll get off that. This is very interesting. This supply priority allows you to, get this, give priority to which units you want to supply first. So there's a base level of supply and fuel that will go out to your units regardless. I think that's 25%. I'll check that. But I think the base level is like 25%. Everybody gets that first. So you don't have a greedy headquarters that's taking it all. Then from there are dice rolls, administrative, that's your administration score with your generals. There are dice rolls to see, if they're going to get their full complement of supply, so on and so forth. But in this game, you can now set a level from 0, which means no priority at all. They would be last pickings, up to 4, okay? And 4 would be the highest priority. They will get first pickings when it comes to supply and fuel. So I really like that mechanic. I think it adds a lot of realism to the game. It gives you a lot of flexibility as the player of where you want to send supply or where you need supply, if you have units in the back. I may correct that just a bit. I think if you set it to 0, it won't even get the 25% level, but I'll check that before we do a whole episode on supply. But anyway, it's 0 to 4, 4 being the highest. That will give you the number 1 priority for when supply and fuel are ready. And this is just kind of a graphical representation out here of what those are. I don't know what the numbers are. I assume green is maybe the highest priority here since it's the panzers and the motorized division or motorized corps. That would be my guess. And yellow is probably either 3 or 2. So green, excuse me. Oh, I see. Well, now that we're looking down here, it looks like dark green is maybe 4, light green is 3, yellow is 2, and red is probably, or orange is probably 1, red is 0. That's a guess. We'll see. Toggle logistics info. Oh, this is cool. This is a cool part of the game now. You get supply from ports and depots, all right? It can be moved by rail, but you'll see you're going to have these triangles here that tell you what the supply situation is, the depot situation. Those are depots out there. We'll get way more into that, of course. It's going to be one of the very most important concepts in the game. Factory locations, again, goes, kind of without saying. You can see manpower, rail. We'll get into all of that, but now there's a nice talk. Now there was in War in the East too, to be fair. I think this gives you a lot more information. City capture dates. Huh. Never heard of it. I don't know. Nothing's popping up. I don't know if that is prospectively or retrospectively, like we captured the city on this date and it shows it on the map, or if it's telling you historically. I bet you it's historically what date a city was captured, but I don't see it showing up here on the map, so we'll have to figure out more about that. Toggle roads on and off. Now roads, okay, here's another new concept. Roads are not actually shown on the map, he says, as you look at roads on the map. Generally speaking, roads are not shown on the map. You would have to toggle them, you know. Hey, I toggled. Don't tell YouTube I've toggled. Uh, but you can see the roads and the road network here. I guess that could be important. Major road. This is like war in the Pacific, right? Major road, minor road. Cool. Oh, wow. I'm really glad they added this. But you may say, well, why wouldn't you have roads on all the time? Maybe we will. I'll have to look and see how I kind of just visually like to look at the game. I don't really know that yet. But if you go over any single hex and you see the pop-up, can you guys see the pop-ups? I just want to make sure, because sometimes with menus you can't see it. I'm going to assume that you can and keep talking until someone yells at me in the comments. But the pop-up here will tell you, okay, this is a clear hex. It gives you the hex location. It's in the Soviet Union. It gives you, what is it called in the Soviet Union? They're not states, but regions. Belarusia. It is Belarus. It's Belarus. No, let me back up. Belarusia is not the same as Belarus. I do understand. Nobody yell at me in the comments for that. But then you see right after that, it says average roads. And so this game has integrated the concept of each one of these hexes has a general road level. Okay, and so like in urban areas like Minsk, let's go over Minsk, you can see up there, well, it tells you a lot of different things, right? It tells you that there is AA here, so they have flak units that are actually attached to Minsk. That's cool. Now you could do that in the previous game, but it wouldn't, I don't believe it showed you that on the pop-up. It says it's urban, but then it says good roads, okay? And you would expect that, right? It's an urban area. But this will affect your movement points and will affect your supply. Now, speaking of war in the Pacific here, you can see that the rail lines are differentiated in this game, just like in War in the Pacific. You have minor, what they call one-track rail, all right? And you have major double rail. And so that's going to change our logistics in comparison to the previous game. Just something to keep in mind. But back to the original point, which is, okay, here's a good example. It tells you that there's an airfield here, AF Karmeleva. It's light woods. All right, we could tell that graphically. That was light woods. It's in Lithuania, and it has poor roads. So again, it would be harder to move, or it costs you more movement points to move through a hex with poor roads than it does good roads. You know, I mean, that kind of speaks for itself, right? I guess we don't need to go any deeper into that. We will get into deeper into it of just how much it penalizes you when there are poor roads. This also will affect where you would build depots, because we can build depots in this game, but that's the basic idea. But you can see the roads, and look, I like it. I like it. It's got like the little direction signs here. There are the roads. Weather. Now, weather in this game has been made more fulsome. Is that the best way to say it? You can toggle weather graphics for both air and ground. So just generally, what is the weather? Is it raining? Is it not raining? You can then look at the situation just on the ground. All right. Yeah, here. All right. And this will tell you what the terrain is. Is it muddy? Is it? And there's a whole weather screen that we'll go to, but you can also see the weather just in the air. So is there a lot of cloud cover? Is it raining but it's not muddy? It gives you this differentiation between ground and air. Or you could say none. I don't want to see the dang weather. I'm not an old man that watches the local news. I kid. I am an old man that watches the local news, so I can kid about that. Toggle victory locations. Hey, okay. We can see those if we come out here, I assume, somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Minsk. Oh, okay. So this actually was, it shows you points, I think. for each victory location. Let's back up here just slightly. Yeah, okay, we'll get more into that. I, hmm, that must be your victory points if you take it or you hold it at the end of the game, and that must be how much you get if you have it each turn. We'll come back to that. That's one of those where I'm speculating, but that's how I would guess. Interdiction levels. All right, we don't see anything here now as we get air directives out there. Interdiction, of course, is one of my favorite things about War in the East 1 that I think people don't use enough. It essentially is bombing Soviet units when they move. If they move, we're interdicting them. Okay, air recon levels, you can see that on the map if you want. Air directive targets, we could see that if we want. Do we have any out there? Yeah, we do. You can see them in boxes now, and we will go deep into these boxes, but it's telling you what their air directive is and where they are going to do that based on the box. All right. And so that's kind of cool. It shows you that. Ground targets only. I don't know. Let's pick that. It doesn't do anything now. Whoops. Let's get over here. We'll turn that off for now. Show map flak. That was not show Aflac. It's not that annoying little duck. Show map flak. This shows you city flak only. Okay, can we see it? You can see it. Okay, so what is this showing you? This is showing you towns and cities if they have it. You can see 0, 1 here. We'll go into what those numbers mean later. But this shows you that this town has flak over it if there's a number. I would imagine, okay, here's one that's 0, 3. This is probably light flak and heavy flak. Again, guessing on that one. But we'll see exactly what they mean. But this will show you in cities, if you're going to fly and bomb those cities, what kind of flak that they have there. You can also see all flak, which will show you flak that are in enemy units. And here, I mean, this gets the map really busy, right? But it will show you if units have flak available for anti-aircraft. And so that might be a unit you avoid bombing, obviously, right? They've got anti-aircraft. This unit does not. And so that's a nice little tool, I think. It's something that just wasn't apparent in the previous game. And I think that's a really nice mechanic. I like to see it. What do we have here? Show air operational groups. Well, we already have that pushed. Already have that push? Yeah, we already got that push. Now, we've already talked about these, and you may be saying, so before we get to that, I'm going to get right back to that. But before we do that, let's just mention the fact that these are all the same, and they all deal with air here on the second bar, as we've been seeing this kind of whole time I've been floating around here. Now, it used to be in War in the East 1, you would see move, rail, air transport, how you move your units. Don't worry, that still exists, but you don't see that during the air planning phase. Okay, so as I talked about phases, phase 1 is logistics, the AI does all that. We're in phase 2, that's air planning. In the air planning phase, you're only going to see things down here relating to your air directives. When we hit F12 and the AI takes our air directives and flies actual missions out there, and that resolves, and you go on to phase 4, that is ground movement, you will see those old familiar icons here of move a unit, rail a unit, air transport, I think amphib, those will be up here. So all of the things you can do with ground units will then show up when we're in the ground movement phase, which is the last phase of your part of the turn. Then you would hit F12, everything jumps over to the Soviets. They do all of the same. And then when it comes back to your turn, the game runs logistics, then it pops up air planning. Okay, so what's one of the really big differences here? Well, it is air planning. And, you know, it not only added a new phase and a new resolution time, it also is just structured differently. And these may be names familiar to you. Luftflotte 1 and 1 Fliegerkorps, because you saw those in War in the East 1, but they were represented on the map as headquarters counters that you moved around, and they didn't seem to have a whole lot of use in some regards. Usually your air bases that could also move were on rail lines or close enough to rail lines. They could get supply themselves. Now, you know, the commander here would help beat dice rolls. So if there were command checks, you know, ultimately that would get up to 1 Fliegerkorps and then its headquarters, Luftflotte 1. Let's put that aside. Just kind of try to forget everything that you knew about the air war in War in the East 1, because this is a completely new system where you don't have Luftflotte 1 on the map, that command now. It is represented here in the air planning phase just by this box, and if we select on it, you will see the area that it commands, all right? This is all of Luftflotte 1. Now, just because something is in it doesn't mean it's part of Luftflotte 1. Only those that are lit up here are actually part of Luftflotte 1. And I say those, like you know what I'm talking about. I know you don't. Think of this as like the Army Group headquarters. So this is the Army Group Luftflotte, you know, it's the Air Group, the Luftwaffe Group 1, okay? And it commands Fliegerkorps. Well, in this case, for Luftflotte 1, there is only 1 Fliegerkorps. So this is the Army Group, this is the Army, if we're comparing it to ground units, okay? Army Group, Army. In this case, he's only got 1 Fliegerkorps underneath him. Maybe it'd be easier if I said this is an army. Okay, let me back up for a second. Since these are called corps, Fliegerkorps, let's say this is at the army level. It's similar to being in the 18th Army or the 16th Army headquarters, okay? Then we get down to the corps level. This is directly underneath it, but you can tell by the size, and that's one thing I really like that they've done here. You can tell this is the big headquarters, this is the next one down. Then you get down to this level, which would be individual air, they're like air divisions, okay? So Koluft 18 reports to Fliegerkorps 1. All right, and I should get off this over here. Hold on. I think it'd be easier if I get off that. Let's go back up to Luftflotte 1. There we go. Now you can see, here's Luftflotte 1. What information does it tell you? It's got 138 fighters, 211 bombers, 162 utility aircraft. That could be recon, it could be transport, okay? This is a new command. You can tell it whether to automatically advance with your army, automatically retreat with your army. This right here is actually hold. Gosh darn it, let's double click there. Oh, I see why. I have this button push right here, and so it's trying to get me to give it ground attack orders. Let's take that off. That's what I was looking for. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. Luftflotte 1, you can see all of its vitals here, okay? Luftflotte 1, it reports to no one. Its headquarters is Luftflotte 1. It talks to itself. You know, it's like the old Spider-Man meme. They're pointing at each other. So yes, this is a head command for all of the air war essentially in the north is contained under Luftflotte 1. That it shows you the 4 X's up here. So I guess it is on the Army Group level, right? OKH on the ground level is 5, but the Army Groups are 4, so it is at the Army Group level. This shows you, obviously, it's an air unit, even though you don't see this on the map. Then you see how many aircraft are ready in this Luftflotte overall, and you see how, wow, 666. That kind of gave me a tingle down my spine. What in the world? That's kind of interesting. Anyway, okay, let's move on from, doing a Ouija board here. 666, right. That's what's contained in Luftflotte 1. Then as we get down in here, you get to make all kinds of selections that will tell you, or will not tell you, will tell the AI what you want to do. Mixed mission? Maybe. But we may want this entire Luflot, and just like in War in the East 1, it all flows down. If you select this for Luflot 1, every single squad or Gruppe, which German squadrons are called Gruppas, every single one underneath it will do this, all right? But what this does is allow you to decide if you only want to fly day missions, only night missions, day and night missions. You might not want to be that specific. I think if you're going to let the AI control it, you just leave it at mixed mission, and it will pick what it thinks is best. Normal, restricted, priority, trained pilots. This is your pilot replacement. And so if you want a certain Luflot, now you only have 3 Luflots in the game, I do believe. Let's get off of Luflot 1. Yes, Luflot 1, you have Luflot 2, you can see they're different colors, and you have Luflot 4. And you may say, where the hell is Luflot 3? I believe that's probably on the Western Front, I think, is where Luflot 3 is. So you've only got 3 major commands. This is air commands. This is nice because it now then kind of lines up with the army groups you have. Army Group North goes with, or I should reverse that. Luflot 1 goes with Army Group North. Luflot 2 goes with Army Group Center. Luflot 3 goes with Army Group South. Now you also have Romanian, down here somewhere, Romanian Air Command. I believe maybe, you have Hungarian Air Command. Same idea. They're just the big overall headquarters for all of your air. And as we go on here, I'll get deeper and deeper into that, of course. Now this display here, so this is showing that we've picked mixed. So when I did bring this up, we've got mixed mission. That's all that was on there. It will also show you whether you're flying date, night, or and that is that mixed mission. I don't think it shows you your pilot replacement, but as you can see, normal pilot replacement, restricted, you don't want it to come here. Priority, you only want well-trained pilots. You can make those. Ring circles, for those of us that love War in the Pacific, you get them. The radiuses go shooting forth here. And so if we go to an individual unit here, let's go out here to one actual air base. These in blue are air bases, all right? They're stationary, you cannot move them, so it's more like reality than what we had in War in the East 1. Now these are, they call them, these are the Flieger, gosh darn it, I can't remember the exact name of them. They are the unit underneath the Flieger Corps. So you have Luflot 1. It only has one Flieger Corps underneath it, one Flieger Corps. These units out here are kind of like Corps headquarters. They've got squadrons in them, and you can see those squadrons and what air bases they're on. In blue, these are the active air bases, and these will actually give you quite a bit of information. If we scoot in, you can see here Gurduan has too many planes here, so the air base is in yellow. It does not have enough bullets, so that's in yellow. A lot of information there, a lot of stuff for us to go into. I just kind of wanted to float around here and show that to you. Let's actually go down to, I'll get off of, I'm just excited about these though. What I was going to show you is you can go to individual Gruppas now, or swarms, and you can see exactly how far they can fly. And as a War in the Pacific lover, that's just almost too good to be true. I'll look at those concentric circles till all night. Well, maybe that was taking it too far. Let's go up here to Luflot 2, because I just did want to point out something, I think. Yeah. Okay, so Luflot 2, you see it's got the biggest box. This is the main air command here. It's got 8 Flieger Corps and 2 Flieger Corps below it. I just wanted to show you that a Luflot can actually have more than 1 Flieger Corps. In this case, there are 2. I'm sure we'll be moving things around, moving Gruppas around to, okay, so then you see 2 Flieger Corps. If we click on 2 Flieger Corps, you can now see these air groups that are underneath it. I guess they're called air groups underneath it, and you can see the actual bases that they're flying out of. So let's click on one of these air groups, and you can see this air group's flying out of Radom and Radzin Pulaski right up here, right? Oh, also up here, Grojek, I guess. And you can do that from each individual. You can also go to the air base. You can see what aircraft they have here. It's a really cool system once you get your arms around it. Now with that, I am going to draw this to a close. We didn't get a chance to get to looking at ground combat. I can tell you it is very similar to War in the East 1. The major changes are to air and logistics, and so I will really be focusing on them. As you can see, I mean, this looks very familiar if you've played War in the East 1. Same units, pretty close to the same attack values or combat values, movement points, that all works the same, except now we have, you know, some different kind of terrain. We can see the roads and the railways. That's all really cool. And so anyway, I'm going to call this one to a close and literally just go read the rule book. And I do that only for my subs. I do it for you, not for myself. Of course, I don't want to play the game at all or learn the game. I just do it for you. No. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time. I had a great time. I will be back later today, and we will start to actually sort of play the game. I think it'd be more fun if we do that rather than me putting out a tutorial telling you how to pick the difficulty level. You know, I'm going to start there, and I'll probably also be doing that in conjunction with the basic tutorials. I will also be putting out a basic tutorial continuing on with War in the West for those of you that want to play that game. These two are very similar in the sense that I think you could watch these War in the East videos and get 98% of what you need for War in the West, but I think it's only fair. I promise people I'll do that War in the West, and if you're just you love that theater for some reason, I will put those out as well. Thank you guys. If you enjoyed this, you know, as always, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, say you liked it, give me a comment, ask me a question, taunt me in the comments if you will. This has been Strategy Gaming Dojo. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I'll talk to you later today, and we will be focusing on this one. We'll get right back into it. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Strategy Gaming Dojo out.